Hello, thank you for coming along to this interview today. I'm Abigail, I'm the Deputy College Principal for South City College, which is a part of the South Essex College Group. You may have heard of us, we've got 3 different colleges, Basildon, Thurrock and Southend, and we offer a range of different courses, qualifications, vocational training for learners aged 14 to 16, 16 to 19 and 19 plus. So the role that we're interviewing for today is the role of the Work Experience Coordinator. This role will be based here at the Southend City College, and the salary for that is £24,500 to £26,500. So the real purpose of the Work Experience Coordinator is to support our study programme learners in finding work experience placement as part of their qualification. So as part of their course, they'll go out for approximately, some courses 20 hours, some 30, some as many as 315, where they'll be working with an external employer. So your role would be to help them in finding that placement, getting them out on placement and making sure that it all goes well for them. To apply for this role and to be considered, the qualifications required are a minimum of 5 GCSEs, and what we would normally ask for is English and maths in particular, and they would need to be at grade 4 or above. So if that's all okay, when you're ready, we'll start the interview process. Okay, so the first question for you is that as a work experience coordinator, you will need to be able to prioritise your workload. This will include ensuring that students are placed and go out in time to complete the necessary hours they need with their employer to meet their work experience. So can you give me an example of a time that you've had to prioritise? How did you do it? Okay, so with the first question, it's talking to you about your workload priorities. So how do you actually decide what's most important and how to organise things? Now, it's really important that for this you're specific and that you use a recent example. It's likely that you might not have loads of work-related examples to draw upon, but that's fine. You can use things in your personal life, in your school life, or a hobby that you do perhaps. Maybe it could even be around the fact that you're part of a football team and you train 3 times a week, but also you've had your GCSEs to sit. So how did you know what was more important and how did you decide and actually carry that out? Then think about the step-by-step actions that you took and what was the impact of those actions. So impact is always really important. If you're saying that you created a list, what was the impact of creating that list? You know, did it help you to visualize? Did it help you to see what wasn't so important? That's a really good tip to take forward. And then something that I would add is, where possible, try to avoid giving any generic examples. So sometimes people might say something along the lines of, well, I'd put the most important thing first. But actually, how do you know what is the most important? How do you make that decision? So, for example, is it time bound? So do you think that the most important thing is the thing that's coming up first? And you can use that to explain how you help to prioritise. So this role requires really strong communication and collaboration with both your team, who might work across the group structure in Basildon or Thurrock. Can you give me an example of a time when you've had to work as part of a team? What was your role within that? So the second question is asking about your communication skills and also about your collaboration. So how do you work as a team? What have you done with a team? So again, similar to question one, think about a specific and recent example that you have where you've worked as a team. Again, doesn't need to be work-based, it can be things in hobbies, school, etc. But really think about when you worked as a team, what did you do? So it's important to focus on your own part within that team. Also, because in the question, the words communication are specifically spoken about, really think about your own communication skills. Skills is a huge part of interviews, and if you know that you've got strong communication skills, this is the opportunity for you to talk about it. So how in that team did you, the way you communicate with other people, help with the overall outcome? And then finally, this question is quite broad and will allow you to talk about all the different personal skills you've got, but be honest. Okay, so a common pitfall that people might have is that they reel off a really long list of skills that they have. So they might say, well, you know, I'm reliable, I'm hardworking, I'm committed, but you need to be able to give the evidence for those. So if at any point you discuss a skill that you have, such as your communication skills, give an example of your strong communication skills. Maybe you gave a presentation in class, maybe you wrote a letter to a local company. Those are all things that will help your answer have a little bit more depth. Part of the role of a work experience coordinator is to look for new opportunities for students to be able to undertake their work experience. How would you find and secure new placement opportunities for our learners? So this question is a little bit more tricky because it's actually talking about the role that you've applied for and the role that you're interviewing for. So it's a little bit hypothetical because you're not necessarily going to know exactly at this point how you're going to find those new opportunities for students. So it's looking at your ability to show initiative and to show that you can problem solve. So think about a time that you've done something similar. Perhaps you've looked for a part-time job yourself. How did you go about doing that? Maybe you've done work experience. How did you find a placement? Did you get support from a placement supervisor? Did you go out and contact local employers? That's the type of thing that you can talk about here. And again, as with the other question, skills are so important. So again, think about your skills. Maybe you're good at design, and then you could discuss perhaps social media marketing, or maybe you've got good communication skills. Think about the fact that you could go into local businesses and ask them if they'll take a student. Maybe you could phone people. Maybe you've got good IT skills and you want to do things that way and send out a huge Microsoft form to lots of different people. It's the opportunity to show the interviewer what skills you have, that you can use initiative, and that actually you can problem solve. And the final question for you is, if a student tried to engage with you via social media, what would you do? Question 4 is a safeguarding question. So the reason that I've asked this is because I work within an educational establishment. And if you ever interview for a role at certain places, but in particular education, things also like maybe nurseries, care homes, for example, they will want you to show that you understand safeguarding. So safeguarding is about protecting yourself and learners or whoever it might be that you're working with from harm. So if you're going to interview at an educational establishment like a school or a college or a nursery, make sure you read up about safeguarding beforehand. Because they're not expecting you to know absolutely everything and all of the processes at all. You would get that training when you start the role, but what we would be looking for is an awareness of how to protect, in this position, students, but also yourself. So this is an opportunity for you in this question to show your knowledge around keeping safe online, your digital footprint, for example. So in this instance, you would say that it's not acceptable to communicate with students via social media. Obviously, you shouldn't respond to that student. You'd report it and probably block the learner. So it's really about showing that you understand that there are risks being online and that works both ways for both the student, but also for you. Following the interview, you can expect to hear from us for about 3 to 5 working days, and you would hear whether you've been successful or not. If you haven't been successful, it's always a good idea to thank the employer for the opportunity, but to then ask for feedback. So the interviewer would always give you feedback on how the interview went. Not only does that show that you're willing to improve and progress, but it can also help the interviewer remember you. So if any additional opportunities come up in the future, they might be able to consider you for those roles. So how do you feel that the interview went today?